USC making a statement over LSU. The final score last night in Vegas was USC 27, LSU 20. And the numbers are the numbers, but I think when you actually watched that game, you saw a very different looking USC Trojan football team. Why? What changed? What changed, and then maybe the more important question to ask now is, what does it mean going forward? We'll talk about all that right now. Before we do that, make sure you are subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. USC Trojan fans, we've had y'all riding with us here for a minute. If you have not yet subscribed, no time like the present. Your Trojans look like they're going to be pretty good this year if we're taking week one as a litmus test, if you will, of what's going on out there in Los Angeles. So as we always do, we pick the game wrong. We tell you we picked this one wrong. We 1,000% picked this one wrong. I thought that LSU offensively would be a little bit too potent for USC in this game. That clearly was not the case. Okay, so hand that we were wrong. We will eat our crow. We'll eat some more crow tomorrow on the live show, 11 a.m. Eastern. So tune into that. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so USC defensively, why were they different? There's a lot of things you could talk about schematically and the way they approached this game, but I think like more just overarching on a macro level, the best way I could put it as to what I saw yesterday from USC defensively, they went from like dieting on the defensive side of the football, making minor adjustments, giving lip service, to making lifestyle changes. Because y'all, we all have those friends that's always on some different trend, always some different thing they're doing for themselves, and they'll tell you they feel great. They'll tell you, oh, wow, I've never felt like this before. But it's a diet. It's a flash in the pan. It's minimal. Then, if you want to actually get results, like USC did last night, you got to make a lifestyle change. Not just, oh, yeah, I'm cutting out sugar for the next few months. Oh, I'm cutting out sugar this week. Or just, no, this is how I go about my business. This is how I treat my body. This is how I treat my defense. We kept saying it. Philosophically, the real change for USC on defense would be when they changed the way they did things, from our understanding, behind closed doors. And Lincoln Riley said as much. He's like, we're going to reevaluate and change everything. That wasn't just lip service, y'all. That wasn't just something that he said because it sounded good. That actually, based on that game last night, was 1,000% true. I mean, I don't know about y'all. And again, the box score is the box score. Like, you held LSU to 20 points. Hard to be too upset about anything outside of that. But just the way that it looked, they're tackling. They're getting to the football with aggression. Not just one guy. You got a whole swarm of USC defenders that felt like every single snap making a point to meet at the football. You saw guys playing with passion. You saw guys playing with aggression. Like, there was a real sense of pride and a real edge that we haven't seen from a USC defense in a very long time. And so to see it last night as they enter into the Big Ten with an SEC team on the other sideline after everybody has been talking about them and what they haven't accomplished over the course of the last few years, that's got to feel good. If it was a diet, you would have seen maybe a couple of good plays here, and we would have sat down here this morning and said, well, there's some things to be encouraged about and something to build off of, but you're not talking about it in the sense of them allowing only 20 points. It would have been, that's nice. They had a nice showing from Gentry. And no, they played great defensively last night. And I think a lot of that, like we mentioned during the offseason, needs to be credited to Danton Lynn. Because I keep saying this now, from a player's perspective, there is no possible way to put a value on the leadership in your room. To have someone speak confidence into you, to have someone give you a new vision for what your defense can be, what you can be as a player. Like, it sounds simplistic, but I'm telling you, to actually be able to communicate that to someone in your building, to be able to actually reignite maybe a different belief they didn't have after having a lack of success, that matters. And again, I'm not in that building, but based on what has happened to USC over the course of this offseason and into that game, with how they played, like, feels pretty fair to assume that the new staff has had a very positive impact on the brand of defensive football that USC is playing with. Now, a lot of people are going to be very quick to say, well, we don't know what LSU is. And that's 100% true. LSU, I mean, they could go on and be, it would surprise me, but if they're going to be a subpar team offensively, that wouldn't make sense to me. But here's what I would say. Whatever LSU is at the end of this season, offensively, there is still, in my opinion, multiple NFL players on that offense. You have at least two on the offensive line. I think Garrett Nussmeier is an NFL quarterback. I think Kyron Lacy is an NFL wide receiver. I think C.J. Daniels has a more than decent chance to be an NFL wide receiver. So I'm just saying here now, there is real talent on the other side of the football, regardless of how they put it together going forward. So yes, we'll see how this win ages, but I don't think that you should take anything away from what you did last night defensively. Miller Moss, how mad do you have to be across the rest of the college football landscape seeing Miller Moss have a crazy night last night, go 27 for 36, go for almost 400 yards? Lincoln Riley has another quarterback. It's not a coincidence. Lincoln Riley's got another quarterback. It's kind of that Jesse Pinkman meme where he can't keep getting away with it. Lincoln Riley looks like he's getting away with it yet again. And it's not just the fact that he can run the offense and he knows where to go with the football. Like, I think Miller Moss, just overall personality-wise, fits exactly where this USC team is right now. There's kind of been a similar path for him that parallels this USC team. A lot of doubt, a lot of conversation around, well, is USC going to go to the transfer portal and go get another quarterback? Miller Moss stays. Miller Moss sits behind Caleb Williams, goes off in the bowl game, fights for his job, ultimately wins the job. And you saw a lot of that emotion and that moxie last night, I think, come out on the field. Definitely saw it come out post-game. I think that's what USC needs. Because over the course of the last few years now, and not really counting, so much in the Lincoln Riley era, but I'm thinking just like overall, when you think USC quarterback, you think golden boy, you think, a guy who's just composed, says all the right things, you think Matt Leinart, you think Carson Palmer, and I'm not telling you Miller Moss isn't going to eventually, if you're a USC fan, you hope he's mentioned in that same sentence as those guys at some point in time, but like, Miller Moss isn't like the golden boy. Miller Moss is the guy that a lot of people thought would eventually have to transfer out because USC was going to bring somebody else to take the job this year. Like, I don't think Miller Moss was necessarily on the bingo card every single day of the year last year for USC fans to be the starting quarterback next year. I'm not telling you that there was just like overarching, overwhelming doubt against him, but I don't think he's like the prototypical golden boy. And I loved that from him last night, man. You could see when they won that game, you could see that he had been hearing all that talk from LSU fans, and I'm sure from the college football public, period. Again, heck, we picked against USC in this game, and he's just out there giving it back to the crowd. You know what it honestly reminded me of? It kind of reminded me of just the edge that Baker Mayfield played with when he was at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley. I'm not saying he's Baker, but I'm just saying that team ended up doing some pretty good things, and I think a lot of them had to do with the attitude that their quarterback brought in Baker Mayfield. He's got that swag to him. So now as the dust settles on this Monday morning, I'm losing track of the days here because it feels like all the college football games just kind of run together into one big day. As the dust settles, what does this mean going forward? Right now, from a USC fan, I'm looking at recruiting and I'm saying, okay, that's all we need. Let's go out on the recruiting trail and put that into as many different recruits' laps as possible and make sure they know what we bring to the table now. Because if you're a recruit, especially on the defensive side of the football, the reason why you wouldn't go to USC is because you're thinking, okay, they're going to get drug in the Big Ten. They're going to get out-physicaled. USC doesn't play defense. Lincoln Riley defense, this and that, and it's probably being used as a negative recruiting tool. Well, now after you saw what you saw last night against an SEC team at LSU with multiple NFL offensive linemen on that roster, you're like, okay, well, hey, hang on a second. Maybe this USC defense is trending another direction, and I have a chance now as a recruit to get in on the ground floor. I think that's an appealing pitch you can make right now. So my point there being, strike while the iron's hot. Obviously, you got to sustain this and continue to have this be the optics that you have as a defensive for USC for recruiting. But I think that's massive. And I do not think that's something that we should just breeze on by as USC and what they could be defensively on the recruiting trail, especially with the way that it sounds like they now have their NIL ducks in a row. I would say this too. If you're USC, as exciting as last night was, you need to get used to this. And I'm not saying that like I'm predicting USC to go run the table and win the national championship. It could definitely happen, but I'm just saying like last night, it was very obvious there was a little bit of a weight lifted off some of those guys' shoulders, being able to win this game. And I am all for emotion. I won't lie to you and say I wasn't a little bit like, feels like we're maybe a little bit too fired up to get, like I see guys like doing snow angels and the confetti, and I'm all about that. Like, enjoy your moment. But now you have to reset and go through the rest of your schedule to get where you want to go. Because I'm looking at the schedule, man, and that's the big thing here. Like, the college football playoff path is extremely clear. Like, from a roster talent test, there's 3 games. At Michigan, Penn State, Notre Dame. You go 1-2 in that stretch, I think you're in the college football playoff. Obviously, you want to do a lot better than that, but if you can manage that path and go 1-2 against those 3 teams, a 10-2 Big Ten team, for my money, really should get in. There's 3 kind of tricky games on there. The Wisconsin and Nebraska game, 2 tricky games. Wisconsin and Nebraska are sneaky, in my opinion. But overall, man, you can beat LSU with how good that roster is. I think you made a statement. And Lincoln Riley said it. They said, did you want to send a message to anyone across the college football public, or some paraphrasing of that question? He says, pretty good Big Ten football. So we'll see how USC does now into the Big Ten. But last night, as a jumping off point, getting the dub in front of everybody in the world, that was the only game on, over LSU in electric fashion in Las Vegas. The vibes can and should be high right now for the Trojans. Lock in right here. We appreciate y'all being subscribed. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.